Hey, all you Dragon Ballers. Oh, that was lame. I'm sorry. But welcome back to our discussion of OP Season 5. This episode is going to be our capstone on the season where we spend some time talking about the championship event, the Tournament of Power. I am Brandon Biggers, and I've got Kelly Dennis here with me.
Hello, I am Kelly and I am not Kevin.
That is true. They are distinct despite sharing the majority of their DNA. I feel like it's important to make that distinction because we are going to start off this episode by discussing the power level rankings at the end of the season. Um, there's a lot of discussion surrounding TOP every year in general. There is some displeasure with the format, I think, sometimes, and I feel like there's a general sentiment that just making it is kind of the prize. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's definitely how I look at it. And I say, I'm kind of laughing because I sounded so angry when I differentiated myself from Kevin earlier. But it's actually kind of funny because that is exactly, there is a differentiation between how I view this format, how Kevin views the format.
That is true.
Um, I look at this tournament as more of a victory lap. What I see as the accomplishment is getting into this crowd of 16 to qualify for the tournament. And in my mind, that is the accomplishment. To me, that is what I shoot for. That's what I strive for. Whereas Kevin, on the other hand, I think he's a bit more impassioned about the tournament as a whole. And I mean, that's fine. Everyone else is on either on my end of the spectrum, his end of the spectrum, or somewhere in between. It's totally fine. You can approach it with whatever perspective you would like. At any
Well,
rate, yeah, I mean, it's been up for discussion. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off.
I mean, I do think there's points to be made on both sides. I know Kevin has been vocal about how he views it as kind of a top cut for the whole season, and from that perspective, it makes sense that it's single elimination, and we have the special rules for who goes first and whatnot. But I feel like most people feel that you have competed in a bunch of Swiss events, and you are now in a single elimination event instead of a Swiss event. So the fact that we are all choosing different decks, that we know who our opponents are going to be before we actually play them. There's some factors that you could argue that make it a little less of an accomplishment to win TOP. That's not to take anything away from our people who have won, but we know we play a game with a lot of RNG, and that can strike really hard in a single elimination event.
Yeah, it sure can. And actually, we did not prep on this, but I feel like it's worth mentioning that this year's TOP was slightly tweaked in that you could no people paired could no longer scout their opponents. And I'm sure Eric Inge over in California is just, rolling in his whatever last three TOP graves are or whatnot.
The victim of Kevin's scouting on multiple
Yes.
occasions.
Yeah, so the tweak this year that I feel like we should address is, yeah, you can no longer scout your opponents. What was happening previously in the last four TOPs was pairings would happen, and then decks would get submitted. You could look at your opponent and see, hey, what are they going to play? So you tailor the deck that you submit specifically for that person. And again, historically, in a laughable manner, Kevin has done this to Eric twice in back-to-back TOPs. I think it was TOP number one and TOP number two, where Kevin's deck was specifically engineered to beat whatever he knew Eric was going to submit.
Yes.
Kevin is much more discreet with what he's doing. Eric is much more in the wide open. Hey, I don't care. Come watch my deck. I'll execute better, which is totally fine, and which is usually what happens. Eric executes probably better than anyone that we play
Yeah.
anymore. But I think the tweak to all kidding and joking aside, I think the tweak to this year's TOP was healthy, and I don't know, I thought it was needed.
And I don't want to take anything away from Kevin either. If you're put in a format where you are given an advantage, I can't fault anybody for taking that advantage,
I
So
agree.
Kevin obviously has had fantastic performances in TOPs, and he was our reigning champion going into this season as well. So
Hmm.
um, I guess we should take some time to go over our power level rankings because we You and I have talked, Kelly, and we both have felt like maybe not enough kudos are given to the people who travel for this game, play in these events, and manage to make the TOP by finishing strong in top eights. So you can see on your screen there, if you're listening, our TOP qualifiers with their respective power levels. I would like to take a minute to highlight our Kai winners. Kelly Dennis won North Kai. Daniel Behe came in second technically at South Kai, but has the right to make the black card. Wayne Bettis won Supreme Kai. He's going to make a Saiyan card. Paul Living the Dream Murillo is going to make a red card based on winning. Was it West Kai that he won?
Paul won Grand Kai.
Grand Kai, absolutely. So he's living the dream. Henry Johnson is going to make a blue card for winning West Kai. And then Kevin Dennis, the winner of East Kai, will be making an orange card. He also was already qualified based on winning last season's TOP. So, yeah, so those are our congrats to our Kai winners who earned the right to make a card for our beloved FanZ. We will pause for applause for them. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
But
I quite literally cannot edit that into the into the recording. So anyone listening, watching, just clap your hands to yourself.
yeah,
Otherwise, I literally do not know how to do that. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely appreciate that. And again, we wanted to take a moment to do this because in the lead up to TOP, and then when the TOP is actually happening, and then when it wraps up and ends, it kind of comes and goes like a fart in the wind, to be honest. So, we wanted to do our part and highlight, the performances throughout the season and give a little bit more credence, a little bit more significance to the TOP and whatnot. So yeah, we want to make sure everyone feels kind of celebrated in a way.
definitely. So we both participated in the Tournament of Power. We were about equally as successful. So I was a first round elimination, and you were a second round elimination. But um, I guess let's take some time and really look at the specific matchups and kind of how the bracket ended up. Um, I, I guess let's maybe start up there on the upper left hand corner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's start top left and then work our way down and then right.
sounds good. So top left we had John Holm with he was rampaging Vegito, and Christopher Humphreys ran the same deck that he performed well with at North Kai. He ran Mimicry Villain Boo. So obviously Vegito is looking to generate a lot of actions based on those discards to mastery. Saiyan is kind of an odd pairing for Vegito, I feel like, because there's not a lot of drills that generate a ton of advantage the way there are in Orange and some other styles as well. And Villain Boo, Mimicry Villain Boo is just looking to take advantage of every attack that Vegito is going to throw. So, unfortunately, those drill tutor attacks from Vegito, Boo can copy those and then go get his own drills, which in Mimicry can be extremely powerful. Blue overpowering drill, blue recuperating drill. So he is going to build a lot of advantage that way. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I think it's on paper. Unfortunately, it is a bad matchup for Vegito. I think Vegito's worst matchup absolutely is Mimic because, one, like you said, overpowering drill is going to come out pretty quickly, and then two, I've seen Chris's deck in action, and it's a blue deck, so obviously there's going to be a lot of anti-anger in there, and it's going to be hating on whatever, anger buildup that Ram Vegito is going to try and do. But when I think about the damage output in particular, rampaging isn't necessarily known for being too overwhelming from a damage output perspective. So when you're going up against a mimic deck, if you're not putting out a lot of damage, you're still throwing attacks at mimic, but it's not resulting in too much damage output. And meanwhile, a mimic is going to eat that shit up and throw it back at you 10 times harder because there's no endurance on those attacks. So I think inherently it's just a bad matchup all around, and we see that in the result with Chris moving on.
Definitely. So we did see Chris take that victory. So Then our second match of round one ended up with Paul. He was Ascension Draku. And then we had Energito piloted by Kevin. So he's had some success with Energito in the past, and you and I were both watching this game after we
we
lost, or I lost and you won, and oh man,
we
that
we
finale was cool.
yeah, we were. I think I was playing with Anthony. Him and I were done in about 15, 20 minutes. So I started poking around the other games. You and Ryan were still playing. So I looked at Kevin and Paul, and I saw Kevin was up maybe 45 cards to 20 or something like that. And I quickly X'd out thinking, okay, this game's over. Kevin's got this in bag. And you wrapped up your game, and we started talking on Discord. And then we flipped back to Kevin's game, and it is a completely different game. Again, I saw Kevin up 45 to 20 or something like that. Paul's on level one, level two with like zero anger. Kevin was already kind of up in the higher level. So again, thought the game was over. Then you and I popped back in there, and out of nowhere, Paul is what, like two anger, level four,
Yeah,
with
it's two
10
anger
or so
level
cards
four.
left.
Yep.
So yeah, go ahead. You can paint the picture here.
Oh man, it was he was two anger level four. He had a red double strike on the table, so he had a second use out of that. He Goku fours for red brace, and I'm like, oh okay, well obviously like Kevin can't attack. Kevin attacks into the red brace. Paul activates mastery, banishes a red card, skips good, and he uses the second double strike. And you and I were losing our minds when because I thought it was over, and then Kevin drops the orange meditation, and it's like, oh, God, just,
Wait,
oh,
you and I were freaking out, and I'm pretty sure meditation was on the board for a good 5, 6, 7 seconds before either of you
yes.
saw it, before either of us saw it.
I
So we're
forgot orange
thinking,
meditation existed, man. I was like, what? Kevin's gonna lose?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, me too. And I think, God, like we were messaging, and talking, thinking like, oh my God, Kevin's gonna lose, Kevin's gonna lose, Paul's gonna win, Paul's gonna come in with like the upset of
yeah.
the season, and meditation just pops out, and we're like, oh my God.
Oh
And,
yeah, it was. Oh man, it was like that's the most back-breaking orange meditation I've ever seen. It's so bad. I was like, oh no,
yeah,
Paul. Like I felt so bad
yeah.
for him.
And following the game, I think I'm pretty sure Paul had a feeling that it was in his hand. Did Kev draw that going into the turn?
Yes, I think he said he held it. I don't know. I mean,
Oh, he did hold it because he pitched a bite kick on the
that's right.
prior turn,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
think that indicated to Paul, hey, you're getting rid of a lower two anger card at this juncture in the game.
Yeah,
Then that means he's got meditation.
for sure. For sure. And I mean,
So
I don't know. I don't think it would have changed Paul's decision making. Like you have to go the way that Paul did. He played it perfectly. Kevin just happened to be holding a really busted limit 2 card. It's,
yep,
there's nothing
yep.
you can do about it, right? So,
Oh,
um,
unfortunate. Good effort by Paul, but
absolutely.
yeah, sadly, meditation is what it is.
It is what it is. So then we had our third match of the ToP, which was another orange deck. This was Energetic Krillin, piloted by Mike Martin versus Henry Johnson's Imposing Slug, which that is
I,
not
I'm
a pairing anybody expected.
I, I'm gonna be honest. I I have no idea what to say about this game because imposing slug is like when you look at it on paper, that pairing with the mastery and MP, you would think, oh, it's a mystery box deck.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then you see it's Henry, so Henry is like, Dan Behe light with these just wild, clever decks he just kind of whips out every now and then.
yeah,
But yeah, no, I don't have much to say
yeah.
other than it's a Henry deck, so it's gonna function really well.
It looked like he was trying to do physical beats with level 3, maybe, and then had ball at there as well. Like, it was one of the weirdest decks I've ever seen. And honestly, I would pick Energetic Krillin to win that matchup like 9 times out of 10. But with ball, I mean, you never know. And specifically Slug Ball, because he can just bust stuff out of nowhere with Namekian Hunt and Namekian the setup that you can search when
Malicious
entering.
intent.
Yeah, malicious intent. So Henry took that game with a deck that nobody really saw coming, and maybe I don't know that I would say it's a good deck,
It's a Henry. It's a Henry deck.
It's a Henry deck,
It,
and
it,
we
it,
expected Hero Boo, and he kind of threw us
yeah.
for a loop there.
What I will say, and we're kind of laughing as we say all this. So Henry, we love you. We're not trying to
Absolutely.
we're not trying to poop all over your deck. We know you're a very skilled deck builder. One thing I will say regarding energetic Krillin, orange encouragement at no point ever needed to be unnerfed. I I don't even remember what nerf Joey did to that card, but whatever it was, it needs to be redone
I think it
because
was
orange,
BAU, and now it is no
yeah,
longer BAU.
yeah, energetic Krillin is slept on. So really good submission by Mike Martin, but boy, am I glad I didn't have to sit across from that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it is. Krillin gets there real fast, and yeah,
fast and free.
absolutely. I'd like to. I haven't looked at that deck list at all. I'm kind of curious as to the um the MP choices there. So I'm actually gonna. Okay, so he was running. Looks like he's running all super stack Krillin
Yeah,
with
that's not
his.
that's unsurprising.
Yeah, definitely good. There are some different level choices that you can play with there with Krillin. Krillin's honestly just very versatile. He has the benefit of getting three ridiculously good stacks over the course of the game. So
Yes,
yeah.
sir, you are correct.
Well, moving on to the fourth match, we had the longest game of the
Yeah,
TOP.
right.
I think it might be
I,
the
I,
longest game of any tournament.
I promise we're not going to sit here for 5.5 hours like Dan and Derek did and talk
Yeah,
about this match. I mean, we started the tournament at 1 o'clock, and I don't think we got to round two until what, like 3:30, 4 o'clock Eastern?
it was like
Like,
it was
damn.
pushing 3 hours. Like it was a very very long game. So Dan Behe has put together yet another mad scientist creation with Defiant Drill Coup. I don't want to spoil any secrets. It is a very, very combo-y deck that involves getting tons of drills in your hand and taking advantage of Defiant Mastery to generate actions. It's honestly very cool. It's the sort of thing only Dan Behe would ever think of. And then Derek, on the other end of the table, probably his worst matchup of the event is going to be Ruthless Hero Vegeta. We've discussed Vegeta in the previous video about just how generically strong Vegeta is, how when you don't know what is going to be across the table from you, Vegeta is a great choice just because he has so much tech that he can build advantage with, and I feel like that was maybe the downfall here. Dan gave him a fight, but I think in the end Vegeta is just a bad matchup.
Yeah, it's kind of funny looking at the contrast here, where Ruthless Vegeta, no offense, Derek, but Ruthless Vegeta is about as linear as you can get, and then you're sitting across from Defiant Goku, thinking, what the hell is this deck? So it's like two completely opposite ends of the spectrum here, and yeah, we both understand the deck. We would love to go into more detail, but I think Dan might hunt us down if we reveal the details of his deck. So I don't think we were even able to get that game on stream
We were not.
into the latter part of the round because people were kept getting booted. So yeah, we're not gonna reveal the secret, but just like you said, it's a bad scientist, super combo heavy deck that yeah is many layers. Um, it's really I don't know. You just got to have to work through so many layers of interactions to get to the engine that deck is. So
Yeah, it's
whereas some of us see 2, 3 layers of interactions deep, Dan sees like 10 to 15. Just doing algorithm math, and it's like that Zach Galifianakis meme when he's building decks.
mm-hmm. All right, so we made it to the other side of the bracket. Sorry, we have to cut for time there before it goes too much further, just to balance coverage. Um, so we have Andrew Bjornstad running another of his favorites. If you've never interacted with Andrew, he's a great guy, but he has some decks that he has really fine tuned and piloted for a long time. His top two are Imposing Gohan and Perceptive Tien. So it was, I mean, it is unsurprising that he ran Imposing Gohan in this event. And he was across the table, metaphorical online table, from Brian Loftus, who brought Rampaging Vegeta, Hero Vegeta. Yet again, another really, really strong Vegeta combo, looking to anger out with Beats as kind of a side dish there. Yeah, so Andrew did take that win. Um, he runs a lot of anti-anger in his build.
Yeah, I mean, with as aggressive as those two decks are, I don't know if there's all that much to say. I don't know if there's all that much to peel away there, but I mean, I think the crux here, as you said, is Andrew packed a ton of anti-anger in that deck. So on paper, it's just a really rough matchup for any ramp deck, really.
Yeah, he's got Wall Breaker, he's got a Shoulder Slam. I mean, it's a lot that he is running anger hate wise, and he is just all about generating a million actions and killing you before you can even see it. So Brian did manage to level up really quickly in that matchup, but he hit level 3, and then Andrew found the wall breaker, and so that was the difference in that game for sure. And then to our next match, the two Piccolos, two empowered Piccolos who entered this event, Wayne Bettis, Eric Johnson, they ended up matching up in a race of who can get off level 1 the fastest. I mean, I don't really have a lot to say about that. I mean, I feel like we know what Piccolo does, and that is, I mean, he's going to cycle those named cards. He's going to look to lethal chop you to death, throw big
Hmm.
energies, and profits.
Yeah, I mean, here my take on the matchup, it's Empower Piccolo versus Empower Piccolo. I'm sure Wayne and Eric are going to have their differences if you compare their deck lists. Whatever Wayne prefers, then you'll see the differences give rise there, and then Eric, whatever he prefers, you're going to see that manifest in his list. But I mean, it's Empower Piccolo. There's so much inherent free raw value.
At the end of the day, I mean, the engine's the same in both decks, and it comes down to who draws better, if we're being honest. Who draws better, who makes slightly different calls, and it ended up being Wayne on that day. So
Hmm.
that is what it is. And then we come to the Ascension matchup. I'm sure this was a blast, and I'm kind of going to let you take it, but this was Anthony Tardino's Ascension Cooler versus the one, the only Kelly Dennis's Ascension Hercule.
I've played against the Ascension Cooler many times, actually twice at East Kai. So it's one of Anthony's pet decks. It's very inherently strong. The way it turned out, it was the most vanilla Ascension Mirror matchup as you could imagine. Start the game, level 1, I gain an anger, he gains an anger, I gain 2 anger, he gains 2 anger. He jumps to Cooler level 2. With all my physical attacks, he gets a free level. With my level 3 with Dynamite Kick, I get a free level. It was tit for tat literally the entire game. And I think what it really came down to was the fact that we both arrived at level 4 at the same time. It's almost like the level 4s are going two different directions. Level 4 Cooler isn't going to gain anger, but it can stretch the duration of the game because of the ending combat and the massive rejuve on that level. So he's going to win that attrition factor. But then me, Hercules level 4, has that anti-anger built in. So I knew once we both arrived at level 4, it was going to be a little bit of this like weird chess match game where I'm going to use all my kicks to lower both our angers to suppress the anger and keep him from winning. But then he can also just be like, all right, screw this, I'm going to end combat.
I mean, I feel like
But
it's a couple of decks that are like weird Ascension pairings. Because
it,
you're right, you have Hercule that's lowering your own anger, and then you have Cooler that basically doesn't have a level 4 power. I mean,
yeah,
you rejuve when you gain anger, but you're not going to lower. I mean, it's not, it's a little unintuitive, I feel like. So I thought it was interesting that both of you guys chose Ascension, and you chose pairings that maybe aren't obvious with Ascension.
for those who aren't aware of the deck, it's Hercules is a weird MP. You don't see him come pop up a lot. So, for those unaware, I'll explain what the deck does very quickly. So, with the FanZ level 1, you tutor Hercules Belt from the start of the game. Not the start of the game, but the first time you throw it, you go get Belt immediately. Belt goes to grab Guru. So you use Ascension and your built-in anger from your hand to jump up to level 2. Then when you're on level 2, you go get Guru. You have access to it because Belt gives you that access. You banish Guru to go up to level 3, and because you have access to Dynamite Kick, you can tutor it with level 2 power and also pitch a card from your hand with Belt to go get a Dynamite Kick. So it's a +1 card. So when you're at level 3, your anger cannot be crit and you cannot be de-leveled in any way, shape, or form from your opponent's effects. So what that means is you get this +1 card that effectively you use it for 4 times, you get an anger on hit for each time. So you're effectively skipping a level. So in this combat where you activate Guru, you go from 2 to 3, Dynamite Kick takes you from 3 to 4, and then at the end of combat, Guru sends you back down a level, but you're on level 3 now. And you early game, because this deck works fast, early game your anger cannot be crit and you cannot be de-leveled. And then secondly, your damage modifiers, especially the negative modifiers you get on Red Destiny and Red Blazing Aura, are doubled. So you have all this anger protection, you have this de-leveling protection, and you have the ability to negate your opponent's damage at a significant degree. Very frequently, I can mitigate my opponent's damage minus 12 stages, minus 12 life cards is not an uncommon situation. So that's kind of how the deck works, and then you let Ascension take you the rest of the way. The only problem is in this matchup, Hercule, you're throwing dynamite kicks for one stage over and over. You were handing Cooler a free level on level 2. So
Yeah,
it just became this like weird, interesting matchup.
for sure. And it can be it can be very frustrating to play against from experience. So um and then
Yeah.
I guess rounding out that first round is Ryan versus me. So
Mm-hmm.
um, he was Resolute Hirobu, same deck he ran at North Kai. Going into this event, I felt really good about Ginyu and his place in the meta, and I knew I wanted to run a deck that pushed more than one win condition, and so I ended up landing on Energetic Ginyu. I actually expected to see Gujita a lot in this tournament, and none of them showed up. So that was one reason I went with Ginyu. Another reason is just because, I mean, Ginyu 3 is just a really powerful level. He has a lot of ally recursion. He can push a lot of anger early in his 1 and 2, and then his 3 has the mods, and those can snowball really really quickly between Goldo, Birder, and Ginyu 3 and 4. So yeah, I felt really strongly that I would have a pretty good path, and I thought people were going to be sleeping on energetic mastery as well. Unfortunately, I ended up getting paired with what was probably my worst matchup of the tournament. Ginyu strength is that he out actions, Hirobu does the same. And so through B and Hercule, he's just able to push a lot of damage, especially with Resolute Mastery. With that +1 life, it really adds up. And his deck is just all gas. So I was really afraid of level 3 going into this game. I actually managed to keep him off of level 3 because I prioritized getting out Zarbon, and so he was having to use his Hercule and his level 1 Boo to control my anger for most of the game because I was gaining very, very quickly, which was the smart play. If he hadn't done that, I would have PPV'd almost immediately. As the game went, I ended up on level 4 with 3 anger. He was at level 2. We both had 4 life left in deck. I threw an attack and I said, okay, started chicken piles. If he had Blue Clash or the other blue energy that's unpreventable that I
Blue
can't,
energy wave.
yeah, Blue Energy Wave. I checked his piles. He had one each of those left in his deck. So he discarded a Resolute Mastery, drew a card, and I said, well, if he drew either of those cards, I lose. And he revealed that he had drawn Blue Energy Wave and had one stage left on B to perform it. So he killed me clean 4 off the
Mm-hmm.
top. It was a very, very close game. Honestly, I don't think I could have played different. But yeah, and then obviously he had a great showing in the tournament as well, finishing top 4. no shame in losing it. Like we've touched on in the previous videos, this is a very much a rock paper scissors meta. It's a very balanced meta. So
Yeah,
one draw goes different, and I win that game, and you can't really complain about that. I feel like so.
yeah. And I think how it ended, it was what, four life cards to four life cards,
Yep,
roughly.
4-4, 4-4, and I had one more attack in hand that he had a block for, and he ended up drawing the card he needed to just end it outright. So it was a great game. Really, really enjoyable game. Ryan's a great guy. And
Yeah,
then for the rest of
agreed.
the day, I spent my time judging
Yeah.
others more
So
than I usually do.
yeah, yeah. So I think that about rounds out the first round. So I flip back up. I'm reading this correctly. Was it Mimic? So you get Mimic Boo by Chris Humphries versus Kevin again running
Yep.
Energito.
And he
And
was scared going into that matchup. He thought he was going to lose for the same reason John did round one. That Boo can copy those powers and really generate a lot of advantage. I don't know. Kevin was not shy with us about the fact that he got very, very lucky in this matchup.
yeah, yeah. It sounds like the draws weighed heavily in his favor. I mean, it's kind of funny. You get Mimic Boo, and he sees two Vegetos in round one, round two, and still for the same reasons I mentioned on that first matchup with John in to Chris's favor. Yeah, Mimic Boo is gonna have a on paper a significantly favorable matchup against Vegito, but I sounds like the way it turned out, it was just draws were completely on opposite ends of the spectrum.
I think Kevin's exact words were, "I have never seen someone draw worse." so,
That's
so
right. I've already
sometimes that
gathered that.
happens. Sometimes you milk the squirrel, and sometimes the squirrel milks you. That's just how it goes.
What?
I don't know. It's from a Dilbert comic, like back in the day. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So that punched Kevin's ticket to top four. And then our next match was Imposing Slug versus Ruthless Vegeta. Yeah, again, I feel like I still have not seen Henry's deck enough to know what it was really trying
Uh,
to do.
uh,
And I'm not
it,
meaning that as an insult. I know he has a plan because he's a great player, but it's
yeah.
just I'm not sure what that plan was. And I think it just kind of looked like, I mean, Derek kind of ran over him a little bit. Like it was close for a while, and then there was that one decisive combat where he just pushed a ton of damage, and Henry really couldn't do anything about it.
I was playing my game with Ryan, so I didn't see the entirety of this game. What I have gathered is that Derek jumped out to quite a bit of a lead early on. Henry closed in on the life deck count because what I've gathered is it's physical beats using Super Dragon Balls, and namely the one Super Dragon Ball. I think it's Super Ball 2 that has a +2 mod on it. And then Slug Level 3 also has a +2 or +3 mod on it. I forget exactly what that mod is. But anyway, you got backhands coming in for 7 to 8 each, just with
Ugh.
those mods alone. Not to mention some of the other mods via drills or setups that Henry may have been using. Sounds like Derek jumped out to a pretty sizable lead early on, and then Henry was able to catch up pretty quickly. And it seems like the game went down to one last combat or two. And I think you and I were watching very close towards the end, just waiting for Henry. It's like, hey, he's got the game. He can do this. This is Namekian Wish and get out of here and win and ball out. But
Yep.
while Henry had that play there on the table, it was a prideful challenge combat. It was either a prideful combat or a final flash combat,
Yep.
whichever. Henry was locked out of using the Namekian Wish, and that would have been, immediate win for him. But it didn't work out that way because Vegeta has all his bases covered. But
He
at any
does.
rate, sounds like it was a super close game in the end.
Yep. And then back to the other side of the bracket. This was the match I actually had the opportunity to judge. It was Andrew Bjornstad's Imposing Gohan versus Wayne Bettis's Empowered Piccolo. Andrew was really, I don't know, he was not excited about the matchup because he said Piccolo just beats the hell out of me every time I play him, and that was honestly sort of what happened here. Wayne opened really really strong. I believe he had Beam Cannon and Defiant Challenge in his opening hands. He drew time at a really critical juncture. And early, Andrew really didn't get a lot of mastery activations just because he kept seeing a ton of non styled cards hit his pile. So Wayne climbed levels really, really quickly. Piccolo did Piccolo things, and he took the win in. I mean, it was mostly a landslide. He just saw everything he needed really quickly, and I mean, if you ask Andrew, he would call it a bad matchup as well. So I think there were just a lot of factors operating against Gohan here, and Wayne ran away with it.
Yeah, I think overall, on paper, it's not the greatest matchup. Andrew made that very well known. I think overall, we see this in this matchup, and then what ultimately happened in the finals. Empower Piccolo has a relatively good matchup against stage beats decks, where, one, the mastery makes energies free. You have built in 2 anger into the mastery, so if you need to jump that level to get a reset of 10 stages and get those back, it's not going to be very far out of your reach. Not to mention, skillful parry exists for some reason. Not to mention Piccolo's weighted clothing. So you
Yep,
get an unleash. So you get these auto levelers built in. You get this burst anger built in, and you get these busted blocks that exist that gain stages. So it's an uphill climb. It has a surprisingly favorable matchup against stage beats.
it does, and especially when you are in an event where, I mean, this whole half of the bracket is not running non-styled hate. Piccolo is gonna go off. Like it's not a question.
Yeah,
He is gonna go off, and the things that he's weak to are non-styled hate and anger. And Wayne is running Max Will and Wallbreaker, and I mean, yeah, you're right. You've already touched on it. There's a lot of ways for Piccolo to just lie in wait, let a physical beat stack blow its load, and then banish a couple weighted close, mastery level, and go to town. So
yeah.
um,
And in my defense, you pointed to the right side of the bracket not running non-styled hate. In my defense, I will point out that I quite literally cannot run non-styled hate in my Hercule deck. So if I was playing against Wayne, I would I get no help in that regard.
yeah.
But um, yeah. Anyway, jokes aside, I mean that is how you beat Piccolo. And anyway,
Well,
yeah, moving
hey,
on.
hey, there's a familiar face in this last match of round two.
Yeah, and actually familiar matchup. In our last episode when we covered North Kai, Ryan and I met Ryan and I met twice at North Kai. One time in Swiss where he eviscerated me, and then one time in the finals where I kind of returned the favor and drew the most gas I think I have ever had in my entire life playing this game. That did not go the way, or that was not the way the cards fell this time around. Going into this matchup, I felt like it was a solid matchup because Boo is going to have a lot of action economy and he's going to be throwing a lot of attacks. But what Hercule can do, and he can negative modify your opponent's attack. So I knew going in, if I could just get to Red Destiny or Red Blazing Aura, I could survive. Or even get to level 2 where I get that -3/-3 mod. If I could just get those things online, then I could take whatever he's going to throw at me because instead of his attacks coming in for 5 to 6 and often 5 to 6 of unpreventable damage, they're getting capped at 2 to 3 life cards per attack. So, those are basically pillows relative to what you would be seeing at gross damage value. So that was my plan going in. So what was it? The first combat, I saw blazing aura within my first 1 or 2 draws, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, all right, this is a great start. And the first combat we go in, I have about as ideal as a hand as I could have, assuming no interruptions, which sitting across from a blue deck is unlikely. But regardless, the hand I had, I was telling myself I'm gonna end this combat at 3 or 4 anger level 3, and this is like turn 3.
Fingers
So
crossed.
yeah, and I went in, I threw a blazing aura immediately, sphere. I'm pretty sure the man runs one sphere in that deck, and he saw that one sphere in the first 6 7 cards, and yeah, blazing aura got sphered, and that was pretty much the way the game was gonna go. And frankly, at this point, I think I was maybe 3/4 a bottle of wine into my afternoon. So I was feeling pretty loose, and frankly, we talked about it earlier. I was just kind of happy to be there. So as soon as he sphered my blazing aura, I just kind of accepted my fate. I was like, all right, well, this is how the game's gonna go. So whatever. Um, and from there, I just felt like he had the answer he needed at seemingly every turn. And when I look back on it in hindsight, he is prepared for that matchup. He's got so much anti-anger
A
built into the
lot,
deck,
a lot of
and
anti-anger.
and he just kept me on level one way longer than I ever would have expected. And it got late game, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I just need to get to level two, get to level two, get to level two, and I can just ball out. And I was never able to secure that level two for any period of time longer than like a single combat. He saw two red rebukes actually. So at any point, I even if I did get to that next level, and if I wanted to camp on level two, I knew neck beam was going to be a threat. So he kind of had me locked in, and I think late game he kind of forced me into a couple of misplays. But when I look back on it, whether I misplayed or not, I don't think it was going to make a difference. And I think there was one combat we kind of mucked up a little bit because we had this weird triangulating of level exchanges happening at the very end of a combat. Like Neck Beam was live, Red Escape was live. I'm an Ascension deck, a four anger. So you get like three levels, and then God forbid you tie in the de-leveling protection on Hercule level three. It created this weird layer of, okay, if I do this, if I do that, if I do that, and we like completely lost track of whose turn it was, and had to like reshuffle, or not reshuffle but reorder how we were doing something. So once we got that figured out, it was just the game was pretty much over at that point. But
You
at
forgot
any
whose
rate,
turn it was again?
yeah.
I'm just messing with you.
not
But,
not the same not the same scenario, not the exact same scenario. Um, but yeah, no, just in hindsight, yeah, that was really tricky to triangulate with escape and neck beam and the mastery and Hercules level three, and
yeah,
also factoring in by the time by the time this game was over, I had finished my bottle of wine. So I probably would have been I don't know. If Dan Behe and Derek had gone for 3 hours, it would have been, I maybe would have been on glass two or three, but
right.
whatever. It was fun. Ryan's a pleasure to play, and I'm really happy for him that he was able to, one, get into the tournament and do really well with a deck that he runs really well and has designed very well too. So, anyway, congrats to Ryan.
Absolutely. He was a great guy. Pleasure to play for sure. Well, made it to top four. Back our first top four matchup was Kevin versus Derek. So Energito versus Ruthless Vegeta. It was really cool that we had two streams going for these games. So we were able to kind of witness both games unfold in the top four. And really, it was kind of the story of Derek's whole tournament that Vegeta is just able to push so much advantage through his name cards. He's always pushing damage, and I would say that's a pretty bad matchup for Energito in general.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Vegeta does not do well with stage pressure. He doesn't have many outlets to gain stages inherently built into his stack or the single name card that he has. So not much of a name suite to go along with that. Hopefully, in the next set, we'll get a little bit of support for Vegito, particularly in a stage gain sphere of things. But yeah, no, it's a tough matchup for him. So I mean,
Well, and
I
on a good day, if you draw dead versus Vegeta, like you're in trouble. And I feel like that is always my struggle with energetic and Vegito specifically is drawing those dead cards on defense because you can get rid of one of them, but I feel like there is always a combat, and this happened to me in TOP as well, where you draw more than one drill, and you're just like, well, I just have to sit here while Vegeta hits me in the face, or in my case, Boo hits me in the face. But I mean, and that can be really hard when you have a deck that has such strong action economy. The modifiers, the fact it can turn off your drills. I mean, yeah, it's rough out here. It's hard out here for Vegito. Well, making our way back over to the other side of the brackets, we had Wayne with Piccolo versus Ryan with Hero Boo. This ended up being a really close game. They both are able to push a lot of damage, and I think ultimately this one just came down to Boo drawing the wrong kinds of blocks and Piccolo just being able to tutor whatever he needed. There were a lot of clutch confrontations in this game. There was a really clutch time play by Wayne at a critical moment in the game. Um, yeah, I feel like these two decks are pretty evenly matched on most days.
Yeah, I think so. And I didn't watch this game. I lost, and then I went to go assemble furniture. Is there really anything that really stands out about this matchup? One doesn't necessarily counter the other. Sure, Ryan's got some anti-anger built in to slow down Piccolo, but I mean, he's still got Unleashed. He's gonna get his level. So I don't know. I think this is one of those
It's,
matchups that this comes down to one who draws better, who plays better.
I mean, it's like a heavyweight fight, honestly. I
Yeah.
mean, they're both throwing big attacks. They both have strong action economy. It's going to come down to who sees the right blocks. It's going to come down to who sees time, confrontation. Honestly, I feel like Hirobu should have been running Blue Slide.
Ooh.
We've talked about Blue Slide a lot over the course of this
Yeah.
recap, so I feel like Blue Slide might have put this one a little bit in Boo's favor, but um,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
It's
both are great decks, very strong presences in the meta, as we've seen. And, I feel like this is a very coin flippy matchup.
Yeah, Blue Slide absolutely would have, even on paper, won the matchup because that will eventually hit. And then the other point I was going to make, all Piccolo needs to do is throw damage and a goddamn blue snare pops over. And God forbid if Boo has Blue Rebuke and maybe Wayne has already used Unleashed to throw MPVV in the trash. Blue Stare into a Blue Rebuke is one of the most disgusting game swinging combos that exists in this game right now.
Can I tell you a
What?
secret?
He doesn't run Blue Snare.
He is not running Blue Snare.
No, Ryan. Oh, uh, then okay. Then I think it's fair to say that the oversight may have been what cost Ryan ultimately in this matchup.
I think it's important to note that there are cards in blue that are really powerful in this matchup that were absent from this deck. But like we've said, that doesn't mean it was a wrong call because I mean this deck is very obviously extremely strong in multiple matchups
Yeah,
and you
for
just
the,
draw a little bit differently and I think he takes the win.
what was I gonna say? Oh, and that's so funny because like I look back at like Northkai. What won me that tournament other than the two turn thing? It was Blue Side and It was Blue
Other
Slide and Blue
than the
Snare.
two turn thing.
It was Blue Slide and Blue Snare. And
Ugh, yeah,
hey, hey, that's how shit happens sometimes. You take two turns or your opponent draws two unleashed. Yeah, whatever.
yeah, absolutely. One of
But
these
yeah.
things is not like the other thing, Kelly.
But anyway, no, that's crazy. But yeah, no, those two cards are incredible. But anyway,
I would like to note that our top four were all represented by different MPs and styles. You have Orange, Namekian, Blue, and Red, and you have Vegito, Vegeta, Piccolo, and Boo. So I feel like that again speaks to the diversity of the meta and the balance that we're currently experiencing. So that brings us to the finals of the Tournament of Power. Empowered Piccolo, Wayne Bettis versus Ruthless Vegeta, Derek Faraji. And
yeah,
this, I mean, I feel like we could say the same thing about this matchup that we just said about Piccolo and Boo. It's two decks that want to throw punches, and it's going to come down to who draws the blocks when they need them, who's able to generate the most advantage there.
yeah. And if I'm recalling correctly, these two decks won three events that we've covered throughout this whole OP season. And then Brandon, if I recall correctly, you also judged this game, right? So I think this game you can probably speak to a bit better than I can, firsthand at least.
So I was commentating with Axel actually. So I did not judge the game. we were able to see a lot of this unfold firsthand as it happens. So Wayne actually entered the first combat, which is kind of a scary play versus Ruthless Vegeta. And Paul, or it's not Paul, sorry, Derek actually had enough anger control to keep him on one and push him down to zero. And so I thought leaving that combat that Wayne was in some trouble, that he was about to get opened up on. Seemed like he had the advantage at first, and then it would shift to Derek. It was really back and forth for a minute, and then way to close turned over in the pile, really pushed Wayne to be able to go up those higher levels. Uh, Derek did sphere his time at one point, and that made us all go crazy on the stream, because that's always a great moment. We all love sphering a time. Like, there's not a single player in this game who does not get half-mast from sphering somebody's time. Like, it doesn't happen. Um, and so from there, Derek ended up getting stuck on two, and Wayne just he would draw skillful parry, and
Hmm.
man, I think at one point he drew unleashed and was just able to push himself up to 3 and 4, whereas Derek was stuck on two the whole game, and he just couldn't push enough damage. It just
It's
like Wayne was just. I mean, something we haven't talked about is the stage reduction that Piccolo has. And on 3 and 4, how powerful that is because you essentially cannot stage lock him.
right, right. Yeah, as you were kind of talking through the event in that game, I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, you're reciting every reason I cited as Piccolo is having a good stage beats matchup. You get this burst anger to get you to that next level. That 10 stage gain effectively is closer in reach, whether it's by that burst anger or by unleash. But then, yeah, we also have the stage reduction on beginning. Well, it's on all levels for named attacks at minimum, but if I recall correctly, level 3 is -2 on everything or -1 on everything. Um, help me out there.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to figure that out right now myself because I can't remember. I think it's -2 on everything starting at level 3, and then it continues into level 4. So it is -1 on level 3, -2 on level 4. Level 3 and 4 both make all your attacks focused, so you don't have to worry about
Yep.
time anymore. And he gains stages when entering combat as well on 3. So there's a lot that can really work against Vegeta in that matchup if he manages to get to 3. Yeah, I mean, but again, like this is another matchup where it's like who can hit harder faster, and in this particular game, that just ended up being Wayne. Um, and I feel like that's kind of the summary.
Yeah, to me, that's not overly surprising. We've already talked about how Piccolo is a good stage beats matchup. And then, too, the damage that he's putting out is life cards. The damage Vegeta is putting out is stage damage. So, given Piccolo's stage reduction, there's going to be a little bit of damage mitigation in Piccolo's favor. Wayne just came out in the end.
Absolutely, and to both of these players, I think it speaks to the fact when you put a powerful deck in the hands of a really skilled player. I
Yep.
mean, it's a very I don't know. It's hard to overcome that over the course of a normal event. And another thing is that our two finals MPs are two decks that weren't touched at all by the CRD. They were powerful before, and they remained really, really strong to the point of obviously being the final two decks in our championship event this year.
Hmm. Yeah, unsurprising. And even before the nerfs, if you just kind of get past Adaptive Goku and then Gogeta and Knowledge Dende, if you just put a list pre-nerf, these two decks are going to pop up right there anyway. We saw Wayne win Supreme Kai with Empower Piccolo
Yep,
pre-nerf. We saw Paul win with Ruthless Vegeta pre-nerf. Still, like these decks were way up there. So, when you are the fourth or fifth or sixth top dog, well, when 1, 2, and 3 get wiped out, well, yeah, you're gonna just float on up to the top. So, really, it's unsurprising.
I agree. But I mean, honestly, if we're looking at the top four, any of those decks could have taken it, and really, like most of the field of this event, it's difficult to pick out a specific deck that you think could take the whole thing because I mean, the vast majority, I'd say, I don't know, 12 out of the 16 are all high level mastery MP combos that can take an event at any given time.
Are you trying to say some certain somebody here is in the bottom four there?
No, maybe. I mean, but it could. I mean, Red Ball is obviously still powerful, more so after knowledge is gone.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I kid. I kid. I know what I submitted, so it's fine. Overall, grand scheme of things, I think the tournament was, went very smoothly. Aside from a 3 hour game, we would like to not experience that ever
yeah,
again.
right.
I I
Looking
think
at you,
not having
Behe.
I, I think not having time limits is the right move for a tournament of this significance. But unfortunately, these things are going to happen from time to time. So it's not like they're happening every other round. At any rate, I thought it ran very smoothly, um, and I thought there are some good things to take away from the two streams we had going on. Certainly some feedback to communicate and continue to work on improving the quality that we have around this tournament, and not even just the quality, just raising the hype, raising the lead up, raising the excitement and celebratory nature that this tournament should be.
I do think there's a little bit of a lack of luster, and I think that a little bit could be done to hype it up a little bit. Specifically, this OP season. Kudos to Joey for putting it together. Just in general, I mean, we needed it really desperately, but it did feel a little bit more rushed in comparison to other OP seasons. The time of year felt a little off for a
Yeah,
lot
we've
of
talked about
people.
that.
Yeah, we have. But I do think, there's definitely some good and some bad to take away from this TOP. Definitely want to give props to Joey for making sure every slot was filled in the bracket. That was a problem with last TOP where we had multiple players just drop out. Um,
You? Just kidding.
well, I mean,
You showed up.
I played. I just, was not expecting a 2 hour game followed by Kevin's like 45-minute bathroom break. But it's fine. It's fine. But it is what it is. I mean, I think that Joey is doing some good things, and he's doing some things that maybe could use a little work. But we're in a overall. I'm pretty pleased with how this tournament went.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like all things considered, I know we can speak on behalf of most retro. Like we're absolutely appreciative with what we still have right now. Given how things have what has transpired, whether it be Panini collapsing and then COVID, etc. So I think what we still have going is fantastic, and we absolutely are grateful. And I think sometimes we just need to check ourselves, like, hey, we love this game so much. We love the camaraderie that comes along with it as well. And I think because we love those two things so much, we get more defensive, a bit more sensitive to when things maybe don't go the way that we're expecting, or things don't work out the way we would like them to. It just is what it is, but it's important to recognize that we are lucky for what we have, and we appreciate the game, but we also love it very hard.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's about all we have to say about this year's organized play season. OP5 has come to a close, and Joey is saying that OP6 is going to get off the ground shortly. So,
At the time that this part releases, OP Season 6 may already be out there. So, hopefully that'll get moving, pretty quickly before summer ends, and, we can, yeah, get back into the swing of things. But most importantly, before we go, absolutely want to take a moment to say again, congrats to Wayne. We've done that when we covered Supreme Kai a couple episodes ago, but we want to do it again because obviously that's our TOP winner, and he's going to be champion until we have another TOP. So, congrats, Wayne, and I know you put a ton of time into this game, and you have the respect and appreciation for everybody in this community. And there are a few people who deserve it more than you. So again, congrats, and we're all happy for you.
Absolutely. I'd love to echo that. It couldn't have gone to a better person, the victory. Wonderful guy, wonderful human, blast to be around. And congrats to everybody who managed to make TOP. I know there was that log jam at 1,000 power level, a little bit of random chance there. But everybody who was in this tournament absolutely deserved it. You're all great players, and we look forward to having some more events with everybody and keeping this dead game zombified a little bit longer.
Lastly, now that we are done with the recap, you might be wondering, okay, like what are we gonna do next? Well, Brandon and I, we've been talking about doing this for a while, and we've been procrastinating. We've been procrastinating on it for a while, but with this recap done, we've definitely enjoyed doing this, so we're going to continue doing this in some way, shape, or form, whether we're doing, some, I don't want to say deck breakdown. We have some ideas in the hopper that we're going to start, pumping out over the course of the summer, every couple weeks or whatever the cadence turns out to be. But we're certainly going to keep doing this and put some more content out there to keep the game moving, keep the pulse there, and these lulls and whatnot. So, anyway, long way of saying we're going to continue doing this, and we have some ideas to pump out there. So, stay tuned.
Yep. Thanks for joining us, guys. As always, catch us next time.